Tonight, jobs, jobs, jobs. This month's report coming up roses. This amid economic uncertainty and skyrocketing inflation in every sector of the economy. Plus, the great gun debate.
Over the last 2 decades, more school-age children have died from guns than on-duty police officers and active-duty military combined.
Gun violence in America, now the #1 killer of children. And going for a hike.
As you can see, our chair is a one-seat-fits-all.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Good but not great job gains for an economy on rocky ground. Good evening in Washington, D.C. I'm Jenna Browder. Job growth in the United States appearing to be cooling down. The Labor Department releasing its closely watched May jobs report this morning. It was better than some expected, but some analysts say it suggests that the headwinds from the high inflation and highest inflation for decades, global supply chain issues, and a worsening worker shortage are starting to weigh on the labor market. CBN's Tara Merchner has more in tonight's top story. Tara?
Jenna, economists say the labor market is still strong, even though parts of the economy have weakened. President Biden saying today he knows Americans are worried.
Has added some 390,000 jobs in May for the 17th consecutive month of gains.
I know that even with today's good news, a lot of Americans remain anxious, and I understand the feeling.
Though the lowest number of jobs added to the economy in a year, experts say it shows a resilient job market, even amid concerns the economy will weaken in the coming months as the Fed raises interest rates to fight inflation. President Biden trying to allay fears as Americans feel the strain of rising prices on all fronts.
And there's no denying that high prices, particularly around gasoline and food, are a real problem for people. But there's every reason for the American people to feel confident that we'll meet these challenges because of the enormous progress we've made on the economy.
Unemployment remains low at 3.6% for the third straight month. Average hourly earnings rose by 10 cents, with more workers joining the labor force. Job growth was led by the leisure and hospitality sector as consumers continued to pivot their spending habits away from goods and towards services like travel, dining, and entertainment.
And American manufacturing is booming. 600,000 new manufacturing jobs created since I took office.
Though economists say this is a good report, some believe trouble lies ahead.
I'm worried about the future, and I think the biggest problem right now is not jobs, it's the inflation that's just killing and eroding people's paychecks.
But the Federal Reserve is also worried that rising labor costs will continue to be passed along to consumers, constraining efforts to bring down inflation, which again, Jenna, is at that 40-year high.
All right, Tara Merchner, thank you very much. Well, today marks National Gun Violence Awareness Day, and the statistics in the United States are staggering. This year, more children have died in school shootings than police officers in the line of duty. In a nationwide address last night, President Biden called on Congress to pass laws banning assault rifles and high-capacity magazines. And while Democrats support the president's stand, Republicans say restricting guns will not stop the violence. CBN's Brody Carter has more on that.
The CDC says gun violence is the #1 killer of children in the United States. Last night, President Biden issued a call for Congress to pass more gun laws. But Democrats and Republicans are divided over how to stop the carnage.
Over the last 2 decades, more school-age children have died from guns than on-duty police officers and active-duty military combined.
The U.S. has seen more mass shootings than the number of days so far this year. Gun violence is being called an epidemic.
The question now is, what will the Congress do? The House of Representatives already passed key measures we need.
President Biden presented a number of goals, including a ban on assault rifles and high-capacity magazines, strengthening background checks and red flag laws to keep guns out of the hands of mentally disturbed people. This after 3 mass shootings in 17 days, leaving 35 people dead. 10 in Buffalo, New York, when a man targeted black people in a grocery store. 4 in Tulsa when a disgruntled patient came after his surgeon at a medical facility, and 21 in Texas, including 19 school children, when the gunman attacked an elementary school.
Imagine being that little girl, that brave little girl in Uvalde, who smeared blood off her murdered friend's body on her own face to lie still among the corpses in her classroom and pretend she was dead in order to stay alive.
House Democrats launched a bill Thursday. The Protecting Our Kids Act would raise the age to buy assault-style weapons to 21, restrict high-capacity magazines, ban ghost guns or guns made at home, and seek new penalties for gun trafficking.
This bill will not alone save every life we will lose to gun violence this year, but it will save some. It might have saved those children in Uvalde, and whoever saves one life, it's as if he saved the entire world. The American people are begging for us to address this crisis.
Senate Republicans say solutions go beyond limiting access to guns.
Anyone with any heartbeat is horrified that 19 little boys and girls were murdered, that 2 teachers were murdered. And what does Joe Biden and the Democrats do? They don't come back and say, let's unite behind law enforcement to stop criminals, to keep our kids safe. No, they immediately demagogue and say the solution is to take away your weapons. The solution is to disarm law-abiding citizens.
A bipartisan group of senators is working together on issues like red flag laws, background checks, and school safety. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell expects to have something to present next week. Brody Carter, CBN News.
All right, thank you so much, Brody. And with that, let's bring in CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, what's your take here? Is there anyone really who disagrees that gun violence is a problem in America? And is there any legislation involving gun laws in Congress that has a real chance of passing the House and then, of course, a divided Senate?
Well, no one disagrees with the former. As it relates to the latter, there's obviously tons of disagreement. But what Brody said there at the end of his report, talking about red flag laws, that seems to be where the action may be coming out of the Senate, something that Mitch McConnell may present as early as next week, as Brody reported. This idea that you would give incentives to states to start their own red flag law. So I think that's possibly what the Senate could do. Look, the House is going to pass a bunch of stuff that the Senate's never going to do. So that's where I think the action could happen. Just specifically, there is a red flag actual program in Palm Beach, Florida, that has kind of been a model for how this is supposed to work. So I think you'll see that getting a lot of attention starting next week.
Yeah, interesting. We'll see when in the Senate, Joe Manchin, a Democrat from West Virginia, also not on board with a lot of the proposals that we're hearing about. David, tonight, Vice President Harris is speaking at a conference of mayors in Reno, Nevada. Gun violence surely will come up. Do Democrats have momentum on this issue?
Well, here's the thing. I guess overall the answer is not really. I mean, if you're going to pass some sort of legislation, whether it be what we talked about, red flag laws or incentives for red flag laws, and I guess there is some momentum for that. But overall, no. Look, a federal assault weapons ban, come on. No, it's not happening in this country, not anytime soon, for sure. And as you mentioned, Jenna, just at the top of that question, Joe Manchin is a big roadblock for Democrats. He's been a roadblock and a thorn in their side ever since the beginning, and it'll be the same on guns. So, momentum, not really. The bottom line is they're not going to get anything substantial done. So I would give that kind of pretty much a no with an asterisk.
Yeah. David, let's talk about today's jobs report for the month of May. A boost or a bust for the president?
Well, a trickle of good news, I think, is what I would really call it. And look, at this point, the Biden administration will take any sort of good news. But look, let's also be clear, Jenna, on something. We hear about the May jobs report and, oh, here we go, CNBC, and we make headlines out of it and everything. I'm not saying it's not important, but let's also remember, I don't think anybody in Peoria, Illinois, if you know how it plays in Peoria, I don't think they're sitting around the table going, hey, have you heard about the jobs report today? Hey, congratulations. Look, people aren't thinking about that. What they're thinking about is, oh, milk is up another $1, or milk is down $1, or bread is 75% or 75 cents less. That's what they're really caring about. It's inflation, inflation, inflation. You know what we say? Location, location, location. Inflation is the new location.
Yeah, I've noticed that, they might charge the same, say for a loaf of bread, but the pieces are smaller. You might get the same number of cans, it's fewer cans.
That's right. That's shrinkflation. Shrinkflation.
Yeah,
is what
shrinkflation. Yeah. All right, David, it's always good to see you on a Friday. Thank you so much. CBN's Chief Political Analyst, David Brody. Have a great weekend.
You too.
And coming up, Russia's war on Ukraine, officially in its 100th day. What lies ahead for the war-torn country?
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
I think as a father, it's my job, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back. 100 days of war, a somber milestone as Russia continues its offensive in Ukraine. And while the Ukrainian military has had some success, the fight is far from over.
They've done an incredible job pushing Russia out of Kyiv, and now Russian forces are in the east. And that fight right now is very close and very difficult.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia occupies around 20% of Ukraine, although much of that was seized back in 2014. This week, he urged world leaders to step up their military, economic, and political support for his country. And the U.S. is doing that. The highly advanced rocket system is now on its way to Eastern Europe. The European Union also taking new action, voting to expand sanctions and ban more than 2/3 of their Russian oil imports. Meanwhile, Ukraine's First Lady had a message specifically for the American public. Quote, "Do not get used to this war. Do not get used to our pain." And joining us now for more, CBN News senior international correspondent George Thomas. George, 100 days, where do we stand in this war, and what do you expect in the next 100 days?
Yeah, if we take the words of Mrs. Zelensky, you look at the pain that they're enduring. Here in the West, we're talking about the awful 100 days to the Ukrainians. It's actually 3,026th day because they look at the annexation of Crimea 8 years ago by the Russians as the actual start of the war. But let's take a look at where we stand today. As Zelensky said, 20% of the country right now is in Russian hands. You look at the Russian-controlled area right now. All of the focus, Jenna, is on Luhansk as well as Donetsk. The Russians have basically poured all of their troops in that region. We're talking street by street, village by village, and the Russians are making some progress. They have been in the last several weeks. But as you mentioned at the top, this war is far from over, and as the U.S. continues to pour in these very specialized long-range missiles, artillery fire that will allow the Ukrainians the advantage that they currently don't have against the Russians. But let's not kid ourselves. The Ukrainians are suffering, in big ways. Zelensky said really for the first time that they're losing every day close to between 60 and 100 soldiers. That's huge. That's a hemorrhaging engaging on the Ukrainian side. But again, I think the assessment on both sides of the globe in terms of the intelligence community is that this is potentially turning into a devastating slog between these two countries, both sides being affected tremendously as a result.
Yeah, George, just how long can both sides keep this up?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Russians, Jenna, they're not going to give up. They're not just suddenly going to pull out. And neither are the Ukrainians going to lay down their arms. So that's impossible. That's not going to happen. The challenge for the Ukrainians right now is that the Russians control that eastern part, as I mentioned, the industrial heartland of the country, some of the most fertile agricultural land in the east. Then on top of that, the Russians have basically blockaded the south. So there is no imports coming into the country, and neither are there any exports. In fact, Turkey is trying to talk to the Russians to ease off the blockade on the Black Sea and the Azov Sea to allow some of the food to come in and to allow some of the grain exports to get out. But boy, oh boy, I mean, both sides are suffering. Russia now dealing with massive recession problems. So on both sides of the country, both sides of the border, there's a lot of pain to go around. What do we talk about? 62 million people that have left their homes, millions of people who have escaped to neighboring countries, thousands of people who have died, hospitals, I mean, homes destroyed. I mean, it's really, really painful.
Yeah, it is. It is. George, Newsweek claims Putin underwent treatment for advanced cancer. What do you make of that report?
I mean, you know, the Russian leader's health has been for decades a subject of speculation and denial for so many years. And so we have to take this reporting with a grain of salt. You know, we've been talking about the fall of the Kim Jong-un regime in North Korea. And obviously there's a lot of speculation whether you know, the status and the health of Vladimir Putin. I think, personally, I think it's a distraction from the ongoing war that's taking place right now. This news from Newsweek coming out on the 100th day of the start of the war. Look, but both sides are dealing with much bigger issues, and the health and the ongoing stability of the Kremlin under the under the charge of Vladimir Putin obviously is good headlines. But at the end of the day, I think the behind the scenes, what's happening on the ground and the ongoing fight. Keep in mind, I think what we're going to see in the next 100 days is that the Russians are going to, what the Ukrainian defense minister said, is a layered defense, meaning the Russians are going to try to maintain what they have captured, the territory they've captured, and not lose it to the Ukrainians, which that possibility is very much there. And then also, I think, to further southeast, the potential of it going to Odessa, that the Russians would go to Odessa, that would be huge. Yep. If you would see that kind of a troop movement, military movement in that direction.
All right, George, we're out of time for this evening. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Sure.
And when we come back, Game Changer, how technology is helping find adventure for those confined to a wheelchair.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel. Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com to get your copy today.
Just imagine an all-terrain, one-wheeled chair, perfect for hiking the great outdoors. One pastor in Ohio is using this chair to connect with an unreached people group right in our own country. Heather Sells has this inspiring story.
Deep in the woods of a Cincinnati park, an adventure for those whose lives are normally heavily restricted.
Big tree root coming up.
Doug Frank is all in for every twist and turn. So are Diane, Mary, and a handful of kids.
These hikes are 45 minutes long. They're in the middle of the woods, putting those with disabilities in situations they normally would not be, along with the Sherpas, the volunteers who are carrying them.
He likes that he's hanging with friends.
All right, ready? You guys ready?
Have fun, Mr. Doug.
It's Doug's fourth hike, and he and his mom are sold.
All of these people at this church are the most amazing group of people. They all befriend him. They don't just do the typical chatter that you get from strangers. They want to know him.
And for a man used to battling cerebral palsy, the woods offer a welcome challenge.
He's almost looking forward to getting a little hurt because that's what everybody else, they'd come home and they'd say, I had this great time, but I hurt my elbow or twisted my ankle or something.
Yeah.
And to him, that would be a good reason to hurt your body instead of just therapy.
Yeah.
Pastor Kevin Schwieger started Luke 5 Adventures right before the pandemic. His aha moment, returning from a hike and realizing a wheelchair-bound friend might be hurt if he talked about his fun time.
It just haunted me and hurt my heart to realize that she would never, ever be able to experience this side of heaven what I had experienced. And that just bothered me to the core.
On a quest to help not only his friend but others like her, Schwieger discovered an all-terrain one-wheeled chair. It's made in France and popular in Europe, but unknown here at home. He also discovered more about the country's disability community, with more than 60 million adults and 3 million kids. Landmark research on these children shows those with chronic health conditions often never become part of a church community. 1 in 4 with developmental delays, learning disabilities, or anxiety never attend a service, as well as 1 in 3 with brain injuries, autism, or speech problems.
The world of families living with disabilities is a lonely island of despair for most of them, and there is literally zero chance for them to get off the sidewalk, out of the bedroom.
The ministry, named after the men in Luke 5 who carried their friend to Jesus, does just that, carrying those with disabilities where they cannot go. The simple concept has proved life-changing for both those in the chair and their families. Laura and her husband have 2 children with chronic health conditions and say the hikes provide much-needed fellowship and a break as the volunteers care for their kids.
To not have to worry where this wheelchair needs to go or without it falling or what path can we take. But we're out there and we're able to just relax and be at peace with each other and converse and just be quiet.
Many hikers and their families also recognize that time in God's creation is restorative. Whitney Blackston's 8-year-old daughter can't see or talk, but she loves the outdoors. On one hike, that meant plunging her tiny hand into a stream.
She experiences God's creation through hearing the birds, hearing the insects, and feeling nature, the trees, the leaves. She actually asks to go as often as she can go.
Luke 5 has strategically partnered with the Cincinnati Children's Hospital and the Parks Foundation to broaden support and expertise. The faith-based nonprofit trains its volunteers to safely transport hikers, and that includes carefully strapping them in at the start.
You know, we're leading them one way and the other as we go around the trails, or we're going
down and up, sometimes very steep inclines, and we've been in places where it's very steep. As you can see, our chair is a one-seat-fits-all.
The day we visited, the team took extra care securing Betty, a former hiker who now battles ALS. Moments later, the smiles and joy showed just what it all meant.
It's not rocket science, it's love.
Schwieger has a vision for Luke 5 and its multiplication. Churches across the country reaching these unreached people and their families through a ministry that draws people together in the most beautiful places in their communities. Reporting in Southwest Ohio, Heather Sells, CBN News.
It's the new SUPERBOOK Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and SUPERBOOK episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own SUPERBOOK character. Ta-da! It's the new SUPERBOOK Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link. Tuesday morning at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Finally tonight, many are familiar with Leonardo da Vinci's iconic mural, The Last Supper. But there is something different about the one hanging in St. Joseph Catholic Church near Lafayette, Louisiana. It's been there for 15 years, a piece of Louisiana culture. Father Bryce Sibley wanted paintings hung above the congregation at his church, so he commissioned an artist for the task. With a twist, Sibley asked the artist to paint a bottle of Tabasco sauce on the table next to St. Peter. It doesn't quite have the lettering, but it does have the color and the placement right next to a plate of food. 15 years later, the painting has gone viral. Sibley says he sees it as an opportunity to extend an invitation to the public, hoping people come for the painting, but stay for the prayer. And we'll leave it on that this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful weekend.